Hello friends, let me ask you a question. There were two brothers, Raja and Prem. Both were having an annual gross salary of around 15 lakhs per year. Both of them wanted to allocate around 1.5 lakhs from their gross salary to an investment. Raja wanted to allocate it to a blue chip mutual fund with an annual return of around 10%. But he did not want to avail the Section 80C tax benefit. Whereas Prem wanted to avail the 80C tax benefit and he decided to invest in one of the options, let us say EPF. Now the question is, who will have better returns and why, whether it is Prem or Raja? Before watching the video further, please answer your question in the comment box. Now let us understand the returns made by each of these brothers. Now if you look at it, Raja, who is planning to invest in a mutual fund with 10% return, will not be able to invest the entire 1.5 lakh amount allocation from his gross salary because he comes in the 30% tax bracket and he needs to pay 30% tax on the 1.5 lakh allocation which he decided. So his effective investment will be 1.05 lakhs, which is 1.5 lakhs minus 45,000, which is 30% of 1.5 lakhs. So on a year-on-year basis, he will be investing 1.05 lakhs. I have assumed that there is no cess for a moment for simplicity. Now if you look at Prem, he will be able to allocate the entire 1.5 lakh to the investment which he is thinking of making, which is EPF. So every year Prem will be investing 1.5 lakh in EPF, while Raja will be able to invest only 1.05 lakhs in his mutual fund. Now let us look at the returns. If you look at the returns, at the end of 7th year, Raja will be making close to 11.9 lakhs, right? Whereas Prem, because of higher investment, he will be able to make close to 14.7 lakhs. So as you can see, even though the return in mutual funds is greater, Prem is able to make substantial returns. As you can see, the total investment by Raja is only 7.35 lakhs because he had to pay tax, whereas Prem is able to invest the entire amount and he is able to make considerable return. Look at the huge difference. This points out the importance of Section 80C. So everyone, whatever be the status you are there in, whatever be your income status, you must use Section 80C for your tax benefit. Now, if you look at Section 80C, it is one of the most commonly used option. It is one of the sections that provides the maximum tax deduction. It does not mean your total tax, from the total tax 1.5 lakhs will be reduced. No, that is not the case. It means that from your total taxable income, you can subtract this amount to get a net taxable income. Let's look at it with an example. Let's say here your gross salary is around 12 lakhs. If you are using a 80C investment completely, you will be able to reduce the 1.5 lakh amount from via Section 80C and you can reduce the net taxable income to 10.5 lakhs. As you can see, the difference in the net tax paid between these two cases is around 45,000. So even if you use Section 80C, depending on which tax bracket you are, your net tax savings will vary. If you are in 20% tax bracket, you will be able to save only 30,000. Not only that, Section 80C provides a lot of options. People are usually spoiled for choices. They don't know which one to choose. Generally, how people choose the 80C investment is either based on their friends' advice, their colleagues' advice. They don't really think about anything. They just blindly follow their advice, or they follow their parents' footsteps. Invariably, these two are the common causes for people to invest in a particular type of investment, but this is not the right approach. It is essential that you understand all the options that are available under Section 80C and make the right choice. So let us discuss Section 80C as detailed as possible in this video and the following videos. Welcome back to our channel Intelligent Indian. If you have not subscribed to our channel, please consider subscribing to it. Section 80C provides a lot of investment options. It can be broadly classified into 4 categories. Category 1, guaranteed return and low risk products, or employee provident fund, public provident fund, Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana, all these come in this category. The second option is market linked and medium to high risk products. The National Pension System, ELSS scheme, infrastructure bonds come in this category. The third category is the insurance linked products, where either we have a pure term life insurance or an endowment plan with insurance or a unit linked insurance plan. The fourth category has the housing loan principal repayment and the deduction for children's tuition fee. Now we will look at each of these investment options one by one based on the following aspects. One, we will look at the limit coverage and the eligibility. Number two, we will look at how to invest. Number three, what would be the time period, time horizon and the lock-in period. Number four, what is the risk and the rate of return. And finally, what is the type of exemption. Now let us start with Employee Provident Fund. Employee Provident Fund provides for 1.5 lakh deduction under section 80C. But there is one additional feature that Employee Provident Fund provides that sets it apart, and because of this feature, there is a significant benefit in taking Employee Provident Fund. If you know the answer, please type it in the comment box. If you are not able to find the answer, I will tell you when I am making a detailed video about Employee Provident Fund. The second one is in method of investment. You cannot invest in Employee Provident Fund outside in any banks. You will have to go via your employer. Once you subscribe to this Employee Provident Fund, 12% of basic plus DA will be provided by the employee and by the employer into two separate contributions, and that is divided among multiple aspects such as EDLI, pension scheme and EPF, and it is invested, right? The third one is the time period and lock-in. So you are not eligible for 100% withdrawal unless you reach an age of 58 years or you have 2 months of continuous unemployment, whereas partial withdrawal is possible in certain conditions. The risk is considered a very low risk because it provides guaranteed returns. If you look at the rate of return, the current return is 8.5%, but this 8.5% is not applicable on the pension component of EPF. If you look at the returns history, it has been significantly high in the past, especially during the 90s. It was around 12% and after that it reduced to around 8.5%. If you look at the type of exemption, it comes under the EEE category, that is your investment is exempt, the interest earned is exempt, and finally the final maturity amount is also exempt from income tax. Hence it is one of the better options. Next, Public Provident Fund. Public Provident Fund will also allow 1.5 lakh under section 80C. You can start with a minimum investment of 500. You can invest in any nationalized bank directly, or you can do it online. The time period, the lock-in period for Public Provident Fund is 15 years and it can be extended to another 5 years multiple times. Partial withdrawal is allowed only after 5 years under certain conditions. It is also considered a low risk investment. The rate of return currently is 7.1%, but right now it has decreased a lot. If you look at the history, the returns have been significantly high in Public Provident Fund. So we need to wait and watch how this Public Provident Fund's interest rate pans out. If you look at the exemption type, it also comes under the EEE category, that is the investment is exempt, the interest is exempt, and also the final maturity amount, that is also exempt from taxation. The third one is Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana. The eligibility for this scheme is to have, you must be a parent or a legal guardian of a female child within less than 10 years at the time of starting this scheme. It can be, you can start the scheme as low as 250 rupees per year, and maximum deduction allowed under 80C is 1.5 lakhs. It can be invested in any post office or participating banks. The minimum time period is 21 years for maturity. However, partial withdrawal can be done for the education of the female child or for her marriage. It is also considered a low risk investment and it provides a rate of return of around 8.4%. If you look at the exemption time, it also comes under the EEE type, where the investment is exempt, the interest earned on the investment is exempt, and finally the amount, the maturity amount or the withdrawal amount is also exempt from taxation. The fourth one is the senior citizen savings schemes. To be eligible for this, you must be a senior citizen. Others cannot avail this scheme. It has a maximum limit of 1.5 lakh under 80C, but you can start the investment from 1000 rupees onwards. You can also make more investments, but those are taxable. You can invest this in any nationalized bank or post office. The time period, the lock-in period for this scheme is 5 years, but it can be extended additionally to 3 more years. It is also considered a low risk investment and the return is around 7.54%. Currently it is subject to change and it comes under the type ETE, that is your investment is exempt, but the interest that is accrued is taxable. There will be TDS that will be deducted, and finally the maturity amount is not taxed because the interest is already taxed. Next, the tax saving deposits. These are provided in most of the banks and it also provides 1.5 lakhs under section 80C. It can be invested in any nationalized banks. The lock-in period is 5 years. It is also considered a low risk investment, but the returns are slightly low. It varies between 5 to 7%. Most of the banks give between 5 to 6%. Very few banks give above 6%. It comes under the exemption type ETE, that is, the investment is non-taxable, whereas the interest earned is taxable, and the final maturity amount is not taxed because the interest was taxed already. The next one is National Savings Certificate. You can again use full 1.5 lakhs under this scheme. It can be invested in any of the post offices. The time period or the lock-in period is 5 years for this investment also. It is a low risk investment. It provides an annual rate of return of around 6.8%. The type of exemption of this investment is EET, that is, your investment is tax exempt. The interest accrued is also tax exempt, but when you are withdrawing the amount, the earnings on the maturity amount is taxed. Now we will enter into the next category, that is the market linked and medium risk schemes. National Pension Scheme. It is a very elaborate scheme. We will make a separate video on it, but we will give an overview about it. National Pension Scheme's eligibility is 18 to 65 years. You can claim up to 1.5 lakh of deduction under section 80C, but additionally this section also provides for a additional 50,000 deduction under section 80CCD. So net you can claim a deduction of about 2 lakhs from your gross taxable salary. It can be invested either through your employer or through designated fund managers. The time period or the lock-in period is up to 60 years, and it can be extended further up to the age of 70. It is considered a medium risk because the amount invested in national pension system is divided into multiple parts and invested either in equity, bonds and other instruments, and hence, since it's market linked, the risk is considered a medium risk. The rate of return on an average is around 10%. Many people say the return is around 12%, but I have a difference of opinion. I've shared some of the pension funds returns over different time horizons. As you can see, the return since inception, it's hovering anywhere between 8.4% to 14%. So we can keep on an average of 10 to 11%. In addition, it doesn't mean currently the markets are so highly overvalued, and hence if you start investing now, it does not mean you will get the same returns in the another 5 years. It's highly dependent on how the market behaves. The type of exemption, people say it is EEE exemption, but it is not 100% true. Why? The investment is exempt, there is no issue on it. The interest or the earnings in national pension system is also exempt, there is no issue in it, but the final maturity amount is partially taxable. Why? When you are withdrawing the maturity amount at the age of 60 years, you will not be withdrawing the entire amount. You will be withdrawing only 60% of the total maturity amount, and the 40% is invested in an annuity plan from which you will get monthly pension. That pension from that remaining 40% is taxed, and hence it's not 100% EEE, it's EE and partially exempt. Now let's look at equity linked in saving schemes. It is nothing but a type of mutual fund, a multi-cap mutual fund. It also provides for 1.5 lakh deduction under section 80C. It has the least amount of lock-in period, which is 3 years. If you want quick money, if you want to take your money out quickly, this is one of the best schemes to opt for. It is also considered a medium risk because it is invested in the stock market, and the rate of return is anywhere between 10 to 12%. Some people say it's around 14%, 15%, but the problem is they may not account for the yearly expense ratio that is considered. Hence, to be conservative, so we will consider around 10 to 12% as the annual return. If you look at the type of exemption, it is ETT, that is, while the investment is exempt from tax, the dividends earned on the investment is taxable. Not only that, the final maturity amount earnings is taxed under the long-term capital gains tax. Hence, it comes under the category of ETT. Now, let us look at the insurance linked schemes. There are 3 types of insurance linked schemes. Either it's a pure term life insurance, or an endowment plan, or a ULIP plan. If you look at the type of tax saving, it provides for a 1.5 lakh saving under section 80C on the actual premium paid, or 10% of the sum assured, whichever is lower. If you look at the type of plan, term insurance is a pure insurance product. That is, if you are paying a premium, what you will be getting is only a sum assured for a large amount. Whereas the endowment plan is a product that has insurance, life insurance plus investment in debts. At the same time, if you look at ULIP, it's a product that invests in insurance. At the same time, it invests part of the money in equity. The returns, if you look at it, term insurance doesn't have any returns since it's a pure insurance product. All you get is a guarantee and a security that in case of eventual death of the person insured, the family is secured. Whereas there are some returns in both ULIP and endowment plans, but the big problem is the returns are extremely low. Sometimes it's negative. Why? Let's say if you invest 100 rupees in both endowment plan or a ULIP plan, first a significant amount of that money goes to the commission of the agent, and after that the remaining amount is split and it is parked in insurance, and the remaining amount is parked in your whether it is a debt fund or a stock market. Because of this, you will not get the full benefit of having a stock market investment, nor will you get a full benefit of having an insurance, because the premiums are extremely high for a particular sum assured. Hence, we can close our eyes and blindly reject these two types of plans when it comes to ATC investment. The last one is the housing loan repayment and children's tuition fee. You are eligible for 1.5 lakh deduction on the repayment of principal component and not on interest component under section ATC. For interest component, we have another section. Amount paid for stamp duty and registration is also covered under this benefit. In case of children's tuition fee, only the tuition fee that is paid to this as a part of the school fee is covered. That is, you might be paying more things like donation, admission fee, sports fee, etc. Those are not covered. At the same time, the special class fee or the online classes fee that you pay will not be eligible. Only the tuition fee is eligible for deduction. As you can see in the sample bill, there are multiple types of fees. Only tuition fee is eligible for deduction, right? I think now you might have an overview about the various schemes and options under section ATC. Some of these schemes deserve a much detailed discussion, such as EPF and NPF, which we will do in subsequent videos. Now the question which you will have in front of your mind is which one to choose. There is no single answer available. It depends on your earning potential, your future earning potential, your needs, whether you have assets, what are your existing tax benefits, what is your risk appetite and eligibility. We will look at this in detail in subsequent videos. I hope you like this video. So please help me spread this message so that we can create awareness amongst other Indians and help create intelligent Indians. Thank you for watching.